A loud growl echoes through that forest. Two young elves run scared among the trees. One of them shouts, "Step of the wind," and, on the terminal, it shows that this skill was activated. He keeps running, fleeing from something while using the skill's fleet of foot and green goer. The girl asks the boy named Arnold to slow down. Her name is Mala, a level 9 forest elf, and she is under the negative status of confusion. Desperate, the guy says that he is coming after them, and that she must keep running without looking back. He is a level 10 elf under the negative status of terror. Benny asks if she wants to wake up inside that thing's belly. She screams in fear, telling him to use his ranger skills and get them out of there. No, he's screwed. He admits that he doesn't have any left. Suddenly, he seems to realize something and sees that he just gained a skill, Flight of the Coward, a skill that gives an extra boost to flee from enemies as long as you don't look back. Picking up the pace, he thanks the blessed Lothan and hopes this is enough. He asks Malikika to hold his hand tightly and shoots off like a meteor toward the village, saying they need to heat it up. The creature is left surprised they're alone in the forest now and leaves somewhat upset, having no one else to chase. Sometime later, the DW of adventurers arrives at the city gates, shouting for them to sound the alarms. Malikika collapses to the ground, exhausted, while Antal points, saying that it's the humans. The people in the city are desperate. Some say they're back, while one specific elf just watches, intrigued. In a large, luxurious hall, someone asks if he heard it, and that elf says that a boy was shouting loud enough to wake the dead. Then she says that if this report is true, they're going to need him, and she calls him Raritan. He says that according to the report, it's a young human, and at that age they are only a small threat. The noble says that they evolve quickly, and even a young one is dangerous. She asks if she needs to remind him that they started the War of the Six Nations over a simple border conflict, and their thirst for levels has no limits. They would have taken all of Elatra if everyone hadn't come together to stop them. Elves, servants, harpies, dwarves, Gelans, and draconians. And even so, they barely managed to defeat them. The longer the humans fought, the more dramatic their level growth became. It was an addiction that drowned them in madness. Those affected were impossible to subdue until the humans doomed themselves with one final act of revenge, an act called the Cataclysm. And since that event, they hadn't seen a human. That's why they need him. Rar is a level 48 ranger elf, and his status shows he is under the effect of melancholy. She says that Kira and Mina are out on patrol, and therefore their village is vulnerable. They need him to investigate and to do what needs to be done before this human is already too far away. Tense Riordan says that after everything that happened, after everything they lost, he tells the elders that he doesn't know if he has that inside him. The man says that everyone still feels the pain of their stories and asks how they could forget, but that Riordan is the only elite ranger left in the village. Riordan looks at him with a helpless gaze. Then after a few seconds, he composes himself and now more firmly says that it will be as they wish. Sometime later, already in the forest, the elves observe something. One of them, Tense, asks if that is what he thinks, and Riordan interrupts, telling him to stay sharp. He uses an identification skill. Observing that creature, he sees that it is indeed a level 4 human with the statuses of melancholy, loneliness, and leveling Aldo. He has just eliminated a creature and continues dragging his sword, saying that he is hungry. Slowly, Riordan begins to draw an arrow from his quiver. He says that this will be painless and activates his skills, Power Shot, and Piercing Arrow. Then he fires at the human, saying that it will be one shot in one instant. He says, "May the god of humans give him a gentle embrace, and may he never again darken the branches of Igen." The arrow travels its path with force. But it seems the human manages to dodge it, that hits a tree, opening a huge hole in it. Surprised, Brian says that even at such a low level, he is very fast. Now, it seems that the human has noticed his opponents and begins to dodge a series of arrows being fired at him, until finally one hits him right in the leg. Tense with the human hit, that ranger charges at him with his weapon and delivers an attack that seems to have been easily blocked by the guy. They start exchanging blows in the center of that clearing until the human decides to stop defending and attacks, catching the elf by surprise. He seems to be struggling hard to hold back the attack while the human says please. He says that if he can understand him. Then Ryan is surprised by that and asks the rangers to step back when suddenly a huge creature appears. The Lord of the Forest, a level 42 creature with the status of infected. The massive monster attacks and throws some of them away. Riordan jumps onto that thing attacking it, trying to defend one of his companions. He drives his weapon into the monster's back, but realizes that he's now stuck with the weapon up there. The monster looks at him while he is forced to jump off and back away. That thing roars in fury and charges at him. He ends up losing his balance during the fight. Then the creature falls on him as he tries to defend himself. At that moment, the human starts approaching the creature while that thing growls and drools over Riordan and drives his massive sword through the monster's head. The enemy collapses lifeless onto the ground. Crawling out from under that monster, Riordan says, "May Laffrin have mercy on me." On the terminal, it shows that the enemy has been defeated and that it was a raging elder bear, and the human levels up several times to level 8. Worry, the elf uses the identification skill and realizes that the human progressed a lot. Surprised, he says that he hasn't seen something like this in a long time and that he had forgotten how horrifying this is. Then suddenly, the guy pulls his sword out of the defeated creature, looks at Rard and saying that he tried to kill him. He adds that he did nothing to the elf, and yet he still tried to kill him like anything else in this godforsaken forest. Preparing an attack, he says he got 4 levels from that bear. And with a look full of determination, he says he wonders how many more he could get by eliminating him. 1 week before that event, a cheerful guy asks someone to tell him more about last night's party. And his friend says it was epic, calling him Rob, and that he should have been there, but he replies that he was banned because of the fireworks, even though they can't prove anything. His friend says they would have liked him. Rob says that people like him because they like his friend, but the guy replies, no, they like Rob because he's cool. Then he gets happy and shy about that. Says that if he keeps saying things like that, he's going to blush. And his friend jokes that he's already blushing, but the guy defends himself, saying it's the heat. Someone calls for Jason, and he goes to talk to 2 girls, while Rob thinks that they've been friends since kindergarten, and that Jason always looked out for him, always trying to pull him out of his shell, but the truth is that he loves his shell. It's comfortable and smells like pizza. Jason calls his friend to go, saying they don't want to be late for the therapist, so Rob asks if he's planning on running all the way there. But suddenly, something strange happens. His friend asks what's wrong, and he's acting like he just saw his high school gym teacher. Scared and stammering, he points something out to his friend. Jason curses and says that it's not his gym teacher. Grabbing his friend, Rob tells him to run. They start running from that thing when Jason notices that another student has fallen. He lets go of his friend while Rob says, Jason, no. Reaching the fallen person, he tells them not to be afraid that he's got them. Rob thinks that he's always been a spectator, that he was never a hero. That thing starts thrashing in the hallway while he thinks that it was always Jason, never himself. Then he yells, telling his friend that it's right behind him. They start running again while Rob thinks that he was never the hero. At that moment, one of the creature's tentacles grabs his friend's leg. Falling to the ground, he asks his friend for help, saying he can't move. Then Rob runs toward his friend, thinking that this time he has to try. Suddenly, a chain comes out of that thing, heading straight toward Jason lying on the ground. Without thinking twice, Rob jumps forward, grabbing his friend while trying to shield him from that chain. But even so, the chain wraps around his arm. He says that this doesn't look good as the chain turns into a shackle attached to his arm. His friend seems free now, but he is being pulled into that thing. Jason runs after him, shouting his name. As he's being dragged into that door, Rob calls out his friend's name. The last thing he sees before being swallowed by that portal is his friend running toward him. Rob falls into a dark, empty space, being dragged by the chain. That purple thing starts to cover his entire body until the next moment he's inside a cube. And inside the cube, he seems to travel further and further away while a voice says, you will do. Sometime later, Rob wakes up somewhere, wondering if he's dead. It looks like a cave, and he tells himself not to go toward the light. Coming out of the cave, he realizes he's not dead, which is great, but he wonders where he is. He walks to the edge of a cliff and manages to get a wide view of where he is. He can see a volcano and some animals that should be extinct flying over the forest. Rob gets scared by this and realizes he's very far from campus. Trying to calm himself, he thinks he needs to get back to Jason and wonders where the hell he could be. Questioning if he's okay, he decides to go that way, but gets surprised thinking what the heck is that thing he's wearing on his feet. Then realizes he has a strange sword on his back too. Drawing the weapon, he realizes it's real, cutting himself on the sword's edge. A terminal appears right in front of him, saying he lost 1 HP. After clicking it, it shows his name, saying he's a level 1 human, and also displays stats like HP, Vigor, and MP. He thinks this might be a VR or something. He realizes there's a lot there, and that it all sounds like RPG lingo. He finds a passive skill called speed reading and wonders if it's actually a skill. He thinks that he's pretty calm about this, not freaking out or anything. Suddenly, a huge noise comes from the forest, and he thinks there it is. Now he's freaking out. Somewhere else, a huge diseased wolf appears. It walks, leaving a disgusting trail behind, and the terminal shows that it's a level 8 furious wolf, and it's also infected type. Rob thinks, what the hell? How do I use this? Damn it. While the creature grows at him, he points his weapon and tells it to stay away while stammering. He starts swinging wildly in front of him like a madman, not even looking at what he's doing. Not even the creature is close to him yet. But at the next moment, that thing roars in fury and charges at him as he tries to defend himself however he can, still without looking forward. Completely by accident, he stabs the creature with his sword, only realizing it afterward. Even so, the monster growls and snarls at him. Rob, terrified, shuts his eyes and screams. Then that thing bites his shoulder, wounding him. Driven by the pain, he moves the weapon against the creature and with one movement slices that wolf in half. The thing falls to the ground, finally defeated. Feeling the wound, he curses and seems to lose his balance. Then falls to the ground next to the monster with the terminal showing that he lost 5 HP and then 9 while he says, "Damn, this hurts." Rob keeps losing HP progressively due to bleeding and realizes that this isn't VR, that he's actually bleeding. On the terminal, it shows that he is suffering from severe bleeding and has lost a lot of HP. Leaning against a tree with his HP dropping more and more. He wonders if this is a nightmare and that maybe he'll wake up in his warm bed. Looking at his hand, he says he's sure he's dying and needs to stop the bleeding. Rob starts working on it, grabbing a piece of his clothing and tearing it. He thinks that it won't stop and that he can't think straight and that he's never been hurt like this before. He tells himself to remember what he learned in biology class, trying to treat it with a bit of humor to see if it helps. He wonders if Jason's mom wasn't a nurse and what she would say, guessing it was to stop dissociating and elevate to reduce. So he thanks Jason's mom. With difficulty, he lies on his side, keeping his injured arm raised, but thinks this isn't working. He curses the situation and says he's not going to die there. Does he think he can just throw him in there through a portal, literally throwing him to the wolves, and that he's not going to accept this lying there? Says not in a million years, and adds that he's getting out of this. Then he shouts that whoever he is, he's going to find him and kick his butt and make him open another portal to send him back home. Something starts happening to the remains of that wolf. It begins to melt and turns into a puddle. Suddenly, a terminal pops up saying that the furious wolf enemy was defeated. It also says that he reached level 2, gaining 5 more attribute points, which leaves our hero confused, wondering what's going on. The terminal shows that he earned more bonus points and got a skill called Don't Be Gentle, which improves his resistances when near death. He clicks confirm, where it shows that he'll gain 10 more vitality points. Then he receives Tough Skin, which reduces the damage he takes and also gets regeneration, which heals 10% of his HP every hour. After that, he falls asleep lying there on the forest floor. Jason says he heard there will be a party on 4th Street. And Rob says that party sounds nice, fun, booze, and stuff like that. His friend asks if he's serious and what happened to him, saying he didn't meet people, only video games and chaos. Defending himself, he says he doesn't go around causing trouble. It's just that trouble has a habit of finding him. And Jason says he believes no one will ever know who used the fireworks. Smiling, our hero says they'll never get the chance to make those kinds of mistakes after they graduate, and that they should max out their quota before that. Says he knows this is a dream, but that it's great to see him again, that he can't wait to see him for real again, and that he's going home no matter what. Jason says that even if he does that, he won't see him again because he's dead after all. Shocked, Rob asks what he just said. His friend says finished 6 feet under. I'm sure there's another metaphor. I'm dead, Rob. And asks, what was he thinking? That he saved him or something? While Rob says, this can't have happened. And Jason says he didn't see the consequences. Says that he could have been dragged into the portal that hell along with him, and that there's no reason to believe it was just one chain. Rob says he doesn't know that he knows nothing about that, but his friend says it could have happened. Our hero yells at him to stop saying these things for him, and that he's just in his head. Jason tells him to look at himself, that he looks like an abandoned puppy, and asks if he really thinks he's his friend that they met when they were young with no pattern at all. Grabbing the necklace from his neck, he apologizes to the bro and says that he's already gotten over him. Surprised, Rob asks what he's doing. His friend gives him an evil smile and stepping back asks if he doesn't know, when suddenly several purple tentacles latch onto Rob's shoulder and that thing starts taking over his entire body. At that moment, he wakes up from the nightmare, scared and gasping for air. Leaning against a tree, he says that nightmare wasn't right and that he's still in this place. Then he starts removing the bandages from his arm, feeling happy to see that he's healed. Coming to the conclusion that this world is different, says that at least he didn't end up like that wolf. Even thinking that thing is just a pile of slime now. He can't stop looking at it because he was the one who killed it. Covering his mouth, he thinks he's not feeling very well, that it's disgusting, and that he thinks he's gone. And unable to hold it in, he throws up right there in the corner. He wonders if this day could possibly get any worse. He keeps walking under the rain while the terminal shows that he's losing life, but also gaining a bit, telling himself he's an idiot, that it can always get worse. He feels a little better because he's regenerating, although the regeneration is going pretty slowly. But then he seems to realize something, thinking that when he leveled up, he got a bunch of new skills. So he checks the terminal, seeing that this is one that he activated. He wonders if this is some cosmic joke. Either way, whoever runs this place knows Earth's references. Sitting down, he looks at his open terminal and questions whether he needs to get close to dying to gain more skills. But either way, he's going to grab everything he can to survive this fantasy hell. He realizes that the 15 minutes have passed, so he can use it again. And that should be good enough to keep him alive. But he wonders if when that reaches 0, it will be his end. Like a game over screen from video game. He has the feeling that whoever put him here didn't include a restart button. In his cave, he thinks this place is probably full of furious beasts pumped with steroids, and he just wants to go home. He tries to warm his hands, thinking that if he has to use force to get out of here. Then he remembers that moment when he defeated the furious wolf. Shivering from the cold, he decides that he'll think about it later. He wonders why he left the scouts before they taught him how to make fire, and that there probably isn't anything useful in his pockets like a lighter. But still, he decides to check and realizes there's something there. It seems like a piece of paper. He then pulls the paper from his pocket and realizes it's a note. Reading it, he gets angry. On the dirty note, it simply says, "Good luck." He sits there irritated, staring at that bad joke. Somewhere in Exodin, it looks like a group is fighting vigorously against some spiders. And this is Kira, an epic level 27 warrior. Her statuses are determined and exhausted. Mina shouts, telling Kara that there are too many of them. He's a level 25 elf ranger. His statuses are cautious and also tired. She thinks Mina is right that they won't be able to finish this dungeon with just the two of them, so they have no choice. Carrie yells for him to stay close, that splitting up would be a death sentence. He says he thought it was an easy dungeon. She says it's the first one that appeared near the village. Mina asks if she just thought she can handle this, and she explains that she's a warrior. Her build is made to handle this, just like his class as a ranger. Pulling him to hide, he corrects her saying not at their level. Says that if only they could level up faster. Kara says there's only one creature that can do that, and it's by far worse than anything in this dungeon. She thanks Lone that they don't live near there anymore. Somewhere else, our hero irritated questions the good luck note, saying that some idiot put him there, and all they have to say is good luck. He crumples that lame note. Rob says that as long as he stays alive, he's going to find a way back home. As he gets up, the terminal shows that for nearly dying and recovering his HP back above half, he receives a bonus of 1 vitality point. Smiling, he thinks now that's something to celebrate. But the next moment, it seems like his stomach isn't too happy. He thinks that the first order of the day is finding food and water, and the second is gaining more experience. Looking at the terminal, he realizes that the higher he levels up, the easier it will be for him to survive. So, feeling refreshed with motivation, he says, "Let's go." Sometime later, he faces something and says, "Believe me when I say this." Then he prepares an attack on that poor little frog, saying that he didn't want to do this. Our hero gains 1 XP while getting completely covered in frog slime. Running off happily, he finds another unlucky frog and goes after it, telling frog number 2 to get over here. He chases it, saying he needs its XP. Wing trips over a rock, falling face first into a puddle while the little frog runs for its life. He lifts his head excitedly, saying, "Wait, this is," and floats there half naked, thinking that he'll never be thirsty again. Sometime later, he walks through the forest shouting, "Hello, portal. Where are you? I need to go home." He crouches, looking at that little pond, wondering if maybe it's around there. But while asking if the portal is there, a bizarre creature appears, showing his sharp teeth at him. He keeps walking, checking his terminal, and realizes that MP refers to magic. So, he wonders if he could use magic. Suddenly, he crouches and tries to cast a Hadouken, but realizes it doesn't work. He's just making a fool of himself. A bit further ahead, he finds a really chubby frog. He approaches it like the mighty frog hunter he is, and the frog looks a bit unimpressed with our hero, but still turns into 1 XP for him. Sometime later, he tries to move the leaves with his magic, but it seems a little non-existent. So, he gives up on that branch and grabs the fruit with his hands anyway. He realizes he's still monstrously hungry, and that stomping on frogs isn't giving much boost to his XP. He knows he's nowhere near leveling up and thinks he needs to think bigger than frogs. Suddenly, he hears a sound nearby. He turns asking what that could be. He sees that bird flying away and thinks there goes my XP. Rob stays there killing frogs, thinking it was a massacre and that he feels kind of dumb about it. The terminal shows that he gained a passive skill in swordsmanship, which makes him proficient with swords and sword-like weapons. Rob says that apparently, when you've never held a sword in your life, all you need is a little practice to go from level 0 to level 1. He realizes he's still monstrously hungry and that stomping on frogs isn't giving much boost to his XP. He knows he's nowhere near leveling up and thinks he needs to think bigger than frogs. Suddenly, he hears a sound nearby. He turns, asking what that could be. He thinks he's found the Holy Grail. The cutest Holy Grail he's ever seen. He just needs to make his sword fly beautifully over there, thinking that a squirrel could put him on top. That's an infected, furious squirrel, level 3, and realizing that he thinks to scratch that. It's not cute. That disgusting thing jumps at him while he screams. The hell why? Catching the thing midair, he smacks it upside the head, throwing it against a tree where it crashes completely. The terminal shows that he gained 10 XP for defeating that enemy, while he suffers with his hand full of creature remains. But he gets excited when he immediately reaches level 3, gaining 5 more attribute points. Joking, he says, "Take that. Who's level 3 now? Not you." Laughing at the dead creature, he says it's because now it's a pathetic level 0. The terminal says that his eyes have improved, gaining +1 to perception and also grants a foraging skill, which is a sense for finding water and food and hunting for tracking prey. Satisfied, he continues his journey, leaving those disgusting remains dripping from the tree. When suddenly, another bizarre squirrel with a crazy face jumps on him. But this one is a furious squirrel level 4, also infected, and it lands right on our hero's head, hitting him squarely. Rob runs off screaming for the creature to get off him until he finally manages to shake off that persistent monster. He starts running, but the creature gives him no rest, chasing him like a maniac. When our hero reaches a dead end, a cliff with nowhere else to go, he curses, asking if there's no protective wall in this fantasy world. Like a bullet, the creature slams into our hero's back, launching him off the cliff. Both he and the monster fall, screaming in desperation. Luckily, Rob manages to grab onto a branch. But the annoying creature isn't so lucky and keeps falling. Looking down, he says he needs to climb back up. He can at least find better footing. Or maybe he can just give up. He thinks, why not? His parents don't know where he is, and it's already been 2 days, which quickly turns into a week, then a month. He knows Jason will tell them what happened, but wonders if they'll believe him. He questions if he'll ever see any of them again. And if he doesn't, what will he do? Will he still be the same person he was when he left them? Crying, he thinks no. And of course, he can't just give up now. Or he can be brave. And he says this while drawing his sword, and that one way or another, he's going back home. The terminal shows that he gained a passive skill in climbing, which will let him climb better. And when he finally reaches the top up there, he receives the skill Deep Breathing, which allows him to recover stamina through breathing. Struggling to finish the climb, he manages to level his climbing from 1 to 2. Finally reaching the top, he can rest, gaining an extra point in dexterity for his quick reactions. Now able to breathe a little in peace, he says this place really wants to kill him, but it's definitely a beautiful place. With tears in his eyes, he thinks Jason would have loved to see this place. He thinks that one day he will tell him and also his family about all of this. While tears stream down his face, suddenly he receives a rare skill, Melancholy Resistance, which allows him to recover more quickly from situations like this. Crying, he thinks, no, please. I don't want to lose this feeling. Devastated, he feels that it's a part of him and that he can't just numb all of this. Then the terminal shows that this skill has been turned off. He misses them so much, knows they are waiting for him, and he's sure of it. On the day of the meeting, Malikika teases the elf, who is trying to catch a fish with his hands, saying that he won't succeed like that. The young girl suggests that the others should hit the animal. ORL seems to be having fun and says that he's in no hurry since it's a beautiful day. She agrees and adds that the forest feels peaceful and that she loves this place. Meanwhile, in another part of Exiton, Rob has a very different opinion from the elves and hates the forest after all. He's struggling to deal with the wolf. The guy swings his sword to push the creature away while saying, give me a break, and apologizes to the animal for the beating he's about to give it. A terminal informs that it's a level 8 frenzied wolf and that it's infected, which is clearly noticeable from its skin. You know what? This doesn't even sound strange anymore. If the boy says to himself, the wolf leaps to attack him with its claws and goes for a bite. However, Rob strikes it, piercing through its torso. In the process, he ends up getting a scratch on his face. Right after, he drops his sword and the beast collapses with a loud thud on the ground. Annoyed, the young man wonders how the wolf still manages to stand just fine and thinks it might be some fantasy version of rabies. As if the sword wasn't even there, the monster charges again. The boy greets it with a devastating punch. In fact, he throws several punches while the beast counters with swipes. Finally, one of the punches sends the animal flying, crashing down on its back in the grass. Taking advantage of the fact that his sword is still there, Rob delivers a finishing blow, which causes the creature to let out a huge sneeze. Staring at the wolf, The young man thinks that now is the moment. And indeed it is. The beast is defeated and the boy levels up to level 3, gaining 5 condition points and a passive skill. As the scratch on his face starts healing, he says, "This is weird, but that fight was fun." He completes the thought. The terminal shows how his stats are distributed on his character sheet, and he notices that he still has 5 unspent points. Wondering what to do with those points he received, he realizes he's close to reaching 30 vitality and decides to invest there, believing it might unlock something. By doing that, he now has 20% life regeneration per hour, and seeing that, he was hoping it would be a higher percentage. Then he uses 1 more point to raise his spirit to 20 and unlocks an active skill called Quick Thinking, which improves thought speed, though it can be exhausting if used for too long. Looking at his stats now, he really believes that the investment was worth it. All hyped up, the boy shouts to the forest around him, "Bring it on, wolves, but not the infected ones this time." Continuing his cheerful hike, Rob hopes for normal animals since that way he could eat them. Suddenly, the boy comes face to face with the elf couple who had just caught some fish. And at first, they all get startled by each other. Truly happy, the man feels he found people and asks the terminal for information about the two. Or's terminal shows that he's level 10, a patrol elf, and that he feels terrified. Malikika is level 9, a forest elf, and she is confused. The boy introduces himself and then asks their names, but not wanting to wait, the elves run away desperately from there. And one of them shouts, "Foreign." Waving his arms frantically, our hero asks the two to wait and come back, but they ignore him and keep running like their lives depend on it. Not understanding the reason for such confusion, the young man replies, as if he were speaking to them, "Well, it was nice meeting you, Foreign." Now he feels sad because that was the first sign of people, and they ran away. The boy shouts into the forest, asking if anyone is out there, be it an elf or even a wolf. He returns to where the defeated creature was, sits in front of it, and says it would be wonderful to have someone to talk to. Then he complains to the RP system to make his voice louder. He gets no response, so returning to his insignificance, he says he's going back to his cave. But then a nearby bush is slightly shaken. As the boy starts heading back to the shelter, starving, it seems that 2 elves are secretly watching him. Dragging his sword on the ground, he grumbles about why everything always falls apart. Suddenly, an elf fires a blue arrow that flies at full speed. Our boy loses his balance on a rock in his path. And when that happens, it causes the arrow to narrowly miss its target. When it hits a tree near him, Rob breaks out in a cold sweat. Realizing how powerful that arrow was, it could have blown a huge hole in him. He runs off in desperation, wondering who the hell is shooting so many arrows at him. One of them hits him directly in the leg. Fortunately, the arrow goes through, but it leaves a painful wound on his thigh. Then, an elf jumps from behind the boy while unsheathing his sword. Our hero reacts fast enough to grab his own sword and block the attack. For a while, there's a series of strikes from both sides. Between one blow and another, the boy asks for the attacker's identification, and the terminal shows. A level 48 ranger with a phrase of flash in the dark and the status determined. Rob pleads for God's sake for the attacker to understand him. Suddenly, a loud roar echoes beside them. While the elf says something in Elvish that he can't understand, the boy realizes the situation just got way worse. The terminal reports that this is the Lord of the Forest, an ancient creature that has been at the top of the food chain for a long time. It is level 42 and has the infected status. Our boy is thrown against a tree and hits his head. On the verge of fainting, the boy struggles to stay awake to figure out how to solve this problem. His problem is divided into 2. Either the bear wins and devours him, or the elf wins and defeats him afterward. The creature will haunt his nightmares, but it would give a ton of experience, possibly enough to take down the level 48 ranger if necessary. Feeling motivated, Rob tells himself that he will level up and that he needs this. As he grabs his sword, he realizes that he really wants to join that fight. And then he leaps to drive his weapon into the infected creature that is giving the elf hard time. He hits the bear square in the head. With the creature's defeat, he levels up several times, gains a lot of stats, and also receives +2 dexterity and +1 endurance because of how the feat was accomplished. The terminal now officially shows that the bear is down, and our boy strikes a tired hero pose on top of the beast. Tired, yes, but very happy for landing the finishing blow. He feels a special kind of satisfaction because of it. As he picks up his weapon, he reflects that sometimes it feels like it's the only good thing about this place. Messing with his stats, he boosts vitality by 20, bringing it up to 50, which increases his regeneration and grants him an active skill. What a wonder. With that victory, he was able to use 20 delicious points and unlock Life Surge, which quickly restores 30% of his maximum life. And now he's level 8. Rob approaches the elf and says, "You tried to defeat me, I didn't do anything, and you, like everyone else in this godforsaken forest, want to take me down. The boy adds, upset with the situation. After getting 4 levels from the monster, the boy wonders how much he'd get from the ranger, but the elf starts mumbling something in Elvish while raising his hand. The boy starts bringing his sword down, striking just a few centimeters from the man's face. But Rob gives up, saying he won't do it. He states that he didn't come this far to do something like that to a person, and adds that he won't let this world win. After turning his back and starting to walk away, he tells himself that he's still Rob. At that moment, his stats show that his current statuses are melancholy, a small level-up boost, and moderate loneliness. And yes, he is truly feeling pretty sad. Trembling and looking at his hands, the boy wonders what's happening because he almost finished the elf. He puts his hand on his head and tells himself that he would never do that. Wandering aimlessly through the forest, the boy feels lost and has no idea what to do while trying to push away the thought of what he almost did. He walked for so long without realizing that he almost fell into a hole and sees that it is something new. It looks like a haunted house waiting to happen, or worse, a haunted hole. Rob knows he should turn his back and leave, but maybe the portal that takes him back home could be there. After arriving in that strange dark place through another portal, the exit might be over there. As he looks down, he gulps because of something, and he suddenly remembers a creepy chain. That chain that wrapped around his arm and pulled him while he was at school into this fantastical and adventurous world. I won't let fear control me, since I'm going to face again if I want to go back home, said Rob. And so our hero begins his long descent into the unknown while recalling happy memories to push away fear and stay focused. During his careful descent, the rope of the ladder snaps. The rope completely tears, making him fall and free fall. And this is that desperate moment when a movie plays in everyone's head. After a thud, the young man lies sprawled on the ground, reflecting that he wouldn't have survived that fall if he were still at level 0. It seems like he's managing to handle the place. Then the boy thinks it's great that nothing has shown up yet trying to eat him. Suddenly, someone screams the name Mina, and our boy thinks there is someone in danger not far from him, and he runs toward the sound of the voice as fast as possible. He notices that further ahead, there is a light on. There's a lit torch there, and also what appears to be a door that emits a strange red light right ahead. The young man approaches and opens the door to peek at what is happening. Frightened, Rob covers his mouth with his hand upon seeing the scene there. An elf, or what's left of one, lies on the ground, and his final moments seem to have been filled with deep terror. Observing that poor creature, the boy starts to think about something. Once again, in desperation, he remembers that he almost did the same as someone earlier. Now, crouched beside him, he begs for forgiveness without even knowing why he is doing it. No one deserves to end up like that. Could I do something, or do elves perform some kind of rite of passage? Rob wonders. He questions whether the creature prefers to be buried, cremated, or anything else, as if the elf could hear him. But the only answer he gets in return is the silent and pained expression of the other. Continuing his monologue, he says that he met other elves and that he's having a better conversation with this one than with the others in the previous situation. As he approaches the elf, closing his eyes and believing that this situation didn't happen recently, the shadow of another person appears behind him. The person tells our hero not to dare move while placing her sword close to his neck and completes her threat with, "If you do, you'll lose your head." The young man, after raising his arms in surrender, asks if the lady knows how to speak English. The elf girl starts crying for her friend Mina, and while it seems like she's going to touch her sword, she says, "Human," accusing him of having done that to her friend. Rob wonders how there are so many people in that world who are abnormally strong as he trembles with fear. In the next moment, the woman grabs him by the neck. "Monster, why did you do this to him?" she asks, shaking with so much anger. The girl commands the boy to answer her, or she will finish him. Trying to survive, the young man replies that he is already defeated. She then pushes him to the ground with all her strength. Crying openly, the girl demands an answer. With tears falling down his face and struggling to breathe, Rob asks the terminal to perform an identification. His own status, she shows melancholy and a high level of terror. The elf unexpectedly releases him, and the guy lets the weight of his body drop to the ground. Finally, our hero begins his explanation by saying that he found the boy like that, but the girl interrupts him and tells him to leave that place while he is now sitting with his hand on his neck. After he gets up and starts walking, the woman falls to her knees next to Mina, saying his name as if it were a whisper to the wind. It seems like it was her calling him earlier. "I should leave this place," Rob thinks. The elf girl says that it was her fault because she should have paid more attention since she looked back and her friend was no longer there. With his hand between hers, she wonders who will argue with her for jumping head first into a fight. He was the only one who cared and asks the entity Law to hear her prayers. I will take him home so his soul can rest, the girl concludes. Then she grabs something like a cloak and spreads over his body, covering him. Someone asks if they can help with anything. Rob is still standing there watching the elf's entire monologue. The girl feels furious for having to repeat yourself. She looks back at Mina again, full of sadness. You disgusting, weak, vile creature who can't save anyone. That's all you are. The woman tries to pour out all her pain toward humans. As she slowly approaches, Rob agrees with her statements. Everyone clearly thinks the boy is a monster, and maybe they're right, but he still wants to help the woman take her friend home. For a moment, as the elf is in her arms, she looks thoughtful and finally agrees the help he offers. But the elf explains that this does not make the two of them friends. It just means she's accepting his assistance. Our hero extends his hand and introduces himself, trying to steer the conversation in a lighter direction. Still holding the young man in her arms, she politely replies and says her name is Kara. The terminal informs that Rob has gained a passive skill called diplomacy, which makes him more capable of dealing with situations through conversation and body language. As the girl puts her great sword on her back, the boy mentally reviews the entire long and tense moment he just went through since he decided to descend into that hole. Rob says he doesn't remember that place being so big while helping the elf with her dead friend. Kara explains that dungeons tend to change over time. She adds that this is what she's heard, and our hero assumes that this must be her first time in a place like this, too. The girl says that dungeons are rare near her village, and she's grateful to laugh for that. Rob asks if she came there just to take a look. Kara says that's not it. It's just that she wanted to be useful to her village, since they like to remind her otherwise. She talks about Mina, and in the end says it doesn't matter. Rob tries to comfort her, and says he knows what it's like to feel like an outsider. Not fully understanding, she asks if he's trying to be empathetic with her, calling him human. He says yes, and asks what's the problem with that, explaining that she's the first person he's met out here, that others either try to kill him or run away, and that he feels lonely. Kara corrects him, and says that she tried to kill him. Rob agrees, and says they've left that behind, or at least he hopes so. He also says to consider it pending until they get out of that place. Then our hero says that sounds like something at least, and says he needs to ask. He still doesn't understand how a dungeon can even be, when suddenly something interrupts him, looking down at something slimy under his foot. He asks, "What is this?" Suspicious, Kara asks if he's sure he's a human, and our boy asks what that's supposed to mean. She explains that the stories from her village talk about humans, and that they're not very merciful. And she means, how can anyone forgive the human race? At this point, Rob interrupts and asks, after what? Startled, she asks if he doesn't know. Rob explains, Kira, I've never seen another human besides me. She questions if he has no knowledge of the expulsion or the cataclysm or what happened in Exit. But Rob asks if she's just throwing random words into the wind. Spreading her arms, Kara says that Exitin is right here. Our boy asks if that's the dungeon. Irritated, she insults him, calling him Rafa Fruit, and says, no, it's the name of this region. Rob says it's good to know this place has a name, but asks what the hell is a Rafa Fruit. The girl, a bit impatient, says it's a slightly poisonous fruit. Excited, our hero says that he ate one of those. Kira asks if anyone's ever told him he's kind of weird, and he replies all the time. She asks if he's not from here, then where did he come from? Looking ahead, he says he came from a place called Earth. And Kira says she's never heard of that city, but he explains it's not a city, it's a planet. Kira is shocked by this information and asks what. Rob asks if it's not normal, if no one else has ever fallen from a portal after being dragged by chains, and adds that if not, then he's the lucky one. The elf then asks if he didn't grow up in Elatra, and explains that's the name of this world in case he didn't know. Rob replies that now he does, and thanks her. She continues, and says the ramifications of this are Kara, says that he then has no relation to the humans who once inhabited this world, and that makes her feel relieved at least a little, and asks why he went into the dungeon. Without even thinking about the answer, he says it was to face his fears. Curious, she starts to say that he came there for the level. Then Rob says that by her tone of voice, it sounds like something kind of bad. So he asks why they stopped, and the girl agitated demands to see his stat sheet again, and that it's not a request. Tense, he says, okay, anything to keep her sword in its sheath, and summons his character sheet, making a terminal appear in front of him. Awkwardly, he tells her to go ahead and judge him, and that he's weak. Breathing a sigh of relief, she says that his ability for fast level evolution is still low, and she feels grateful for that. Rob thinks about this accelerated evolution, and that he never noticed it before, and that they have a term for it, a kind of addictive feeling. He asks what happens if that gets higher than it is now. And the elf replies that it would make her reconsider the decision not to kill him. A bit scared, he says he got the message. Kara asks if he knows that he can put points into a category other than just vitality. And our boy says he didn't want to die. There were wolves over there. There were also poisonous fruits and that bear. Suddenly, they crouch down and the elf tells him to stay quiet, asking if he heard that. She tells him not to move and trembling. He asks her to tell him there's nothing above him because he feels like something is above him. Then she smashes a giant spider against the wall. Terrified, Rob asks what the hell that is and activates his identification, seeing that there are lots of level 3 dungeon spider hatchlings and some level 6 ones. Kara says it looks like he's going to add another item to his complaint list. Scared, he says there's nowhere they can run to and that they're everywhere. Suddenly, one of the spiders jumps on him. The elf jumps in front of him, slicing the spider in half, and says that he's going to have to fight. Rob says he's not sure this is the time for it, but he hates spiders, just like Indiana Jones hates snakes. He's like that, but with spiders. Kara asks who that is, and our hero explains that he's a guy from a movie that has a great theme song, but in the next moment says never mind. The girl apologizes to Rob, who hates spiders, but says he should start grabbing his sword soon because she can't fight this brute alone. Our hero stands there trembling while the spiders keep closing in. Carrot tells him to watch his head as she strikes a spider coming toward him. She keeps attacking, saying the first one to fly is the first to die, and activates his circle of death skill. She adds that 20 are down. Now, just another 100 to go the same way. She continues swinging her sword at the spiders, counting 10, 9. She grabs one with her own hands while throwing her weapon 87. She hits a spider dead on that was further away. Then she starts running toward her weapon again, counting until she gets to 2. She pulls her weapon from inside the monster and activates her circle of death skill again, spending a bit more for MP. Annihilating the spiders, she shouts that this one is for Mina. In the middle of that battle, she reaches level 28 and gains some more stat points. Getting really excited, she finally remembers our hero and turns around to look for the human. Then at the far end, there's a pile of spiders, and from inside, you can hear a very human-like scream. He seems to be in a rage, attacking the spiders mercilessly. Tense, Carol watches him and thinks that he's lost. Then suddenly he reacts and runs past her, attacking the spiders. He slices a spider that was on top of her. Kira says that she had already seen it, but thanks him anyway. Our hero doesn't answer and continues frantically killing the monsters while she saves Tense and asks you. Surprised, she says he's a beast, so the stories the elders told were true. Desperate, Rob keeps fighting, wondering why this is happening, why there have to be so many spiders around. He eventually gets covered in venom and bitten by the spiders, and his poison resistance skill increases to level 2. Kara returns to the fight, while our hero seems ready to collapse. More cruel spiders bite him mercilessly, and his poison resistance skill now increases to 3. They're in the middle of that swarm of spiders. He thinks this is hell. Main buried by dozens of spiders, he thinks he needs to get them off him. So the only option is he throws himself to the ground and starts rolling from side to side, crushing those things. The terminal shows that he has gained a new skill, Creepy Crawler Crusher, which due to his phobia gives him 5% more damage to insects, arachnids, and similar creatures. After that weird scene, he stops there half scared and half tense when suddenly a small spider starts approaching, and with a reflex punch, he smashes it, raising his new skill to level 2. He goes back into the fight and keeps crushing those things, raising his skill to level 3 now. He ends up gaining another new skill called Arachnophobia, which increases damage to crawling creatures by 50% and an extra 25% to spiders because he hates them so much. In this process, he gets excited because he reaches level 9, gaining another point in resistance due to his hard work. Rob then approaches Kira and calls her. Trembling and covered in spider remains, he asks her if they are winning. He suddenly notices that the spiders are heading toward Minta's body, so he runs, screaming to defend him from that. Killing the creatures, he tells them to have respect for the dead, calling them idiots. Starting to enjoy the fight, he says he could use a little help over here. While punching a spider, he reaches level 10 and also raises his brawling skill to level 3. Dead spiders fall everywhere. Kara keeps slicing through them with her sword. Meanwhile, she stares at our hero. Smiling, he says, "Where's the life wave?" Looking at his arm and moving it, he realizes he's being healed. Kara calls the human and asks if he has overcome his blood lust or she'll have to put him out of his misery. Smiling with the sword to his neck, he asks, "Misery me?" And in the next moment, he gets a bit sad and confirms, yes. He explains that he's definitely not craving blood and that a hot meal would be way better for sure. The elf says, all right, and kneels down to adjust for dead friend, adding that now that the danger is gone, they should get out of this dungeon. And she smiles at our hero. A good while later, they're roasting fish over a campfire. Happy with the situation, he asks if he can eat that every day. She looks at his stats and says it's a miracle he survived the poison and his accelerated leveling is still at medium. She thought it would already be a moderate. Rob says he doesn't know what any of that means, but he knows this fish is the best thing he's ever had in his entire life. Kara tells him to consider it a symbol of gratitude because she doesn't know how she could have gotten Mina out of there without his help. Our hero says no. He should be the one thanking her for getting him out of what was definitely the worst experience of his life. But even in the forest, he was attacked by monsters. They all says it's the infection. She explains that they don't understand the magic behind it, but it's spreading through all wildlife, creating abominations. Rob says that explains why everything around there tries to kill him. And speaking of which, he's ready to go whenever she is. Kara says that about that. Maybe now is the right time to tell him that everyone in her village wants him dead and buried. Smiling, he says he already knew he met Mr. Level 48. They all says that first she has to clean him up because she can't present him as a crazy wanderer. Our boy asks how she met her friend, and she says they always stole bread from the bakery together, that they were always in trouble together. She explains that she didn't have the best memories of her childhood and that her friend was the only good part. Mina took care of her. Rob says he's sorry to hear that. She continues saying the village has its problems. But sometime later, they arrive at a closed gate. She announces that this is her home. Our boy says that it seems like everyone goes to bed early in her town, but she corrects him saying that's not it. Frightened, she says there isn't even a candelabra. Nothing. She says something is wrong there. She activates her Step of the Wind skill and starts running through the city. Kara notices that everyone is inside their houses and wonders if the infection might have spread into the village. Punching one of the doors, she shouts for Raritan. He opens the door after a while and surprised asks Kira. Surprised, she asks about his leg and what happened to him. Raritan says the healing didn't help. He needs to rest, but it seems like she has something more urgent. Curious, he asks where Mina is. Sadly, she says with difficulty that he didn't make it. Kara says that a dungeon appeared in the forest and they wanted to go together to check it out, but they got separated and when she found him, it was already too late. Riordan says, may Laphron receive him and give him his gentle embrace. And she adds, may he find peace in his sanctified halls. Then he asks to take him to him. He says they were attacked in the forest near the village, that the infection is growing aggressively every day. She says that explains the village lockdown and the injuries. Kara says she needs to warn him before they get there that she had help with Mina. Riera asks if she means, and she finishes that he is a human. The elf notices that he stops and turns around. He asks if she knows that they tracked a human earlier as well, and that he was dangerously skilled. She explains that without the human's assistance, they couldn't have performed the funeral rites, and that if he talks to him, he'll see he's not a monster. Riordan says that if she insists on talking to him, then they will, but if he shows any threatening stance toward the village, his hand will release his sword. She agrees, but says there's one more thing. She explains to him that the human is not from this world. Reaching the human, they find our hero, who says, I'm screwed. He thinks that she brought Mr. Level 48. Then she says to allow her to start the introductions and tells Rob that this is Riordan. Our boy says they've already met, and the elf confirms that yes, they've already met. Surprised, Rob asks if he could speak English too. And the elf explains that around here, they call that language the common tongue. So he understood everything he said before. Tense, he thinks that talking to this guy is like talking to a wall. Extending his hand, he says he's happy they can meet again under different circumstances. But the guy replies that he isn't. And the elf calls his attention. Rob asks the man to help too, and that everything in this world has been so hard. He says he's lost and scared and almost died many times, and that figuring out this world is like solving a puzzle without any clues. So please. He confesses that he needs help, says he knows there was a fight between humans and elves before, but he swears he's not a threat. If not, then point him to the nearest human settlement, and he will leave as soon as possible. Rear asks if he's serious that he's not from this place, and he answers that definitely not, asking what the problem is. Kara says there are no human settlements, not here and not anywhere, as far as they know. Terrified, he hears that he is the last remaining human. Sometime later, they are walking through a graveyard and Rob asks what happened there. Feeling the sorrow, Riordan says it was the war. The cost of it is never worth the victory. He remembers the combat of a huge human killing several elves evolving to level 33. He says it was families. It was friends. Everyone perished in that war. That each one of those stones represents thousands of deaths. Surprised, our hero asks if that's thousands of humans. With a severe look, Riordan says it was thousands of elves killed by humans. Rob asks if humans did that, and the elf explains that there are no limits to their violence. In the end, all the other races united to defeat the humans. And at first they gave it beautiful names, but in the end we call it the cleansing. Rear asks how else he would call the total extinction of people and the loss of more than half of the remaining allies. Matches soldiers' people. He adds that what's left is broken. A world in shambles. The elf asks if the human has nothing to say, that even a gasp of horror would be more than appropriate. Now surprised, he says that none of this feels real, and he thinks that this is also what the humans from his world do. Riordan explains that they didn't just lose each other. They lost who they are in the process. And even if they think they survived, they didn't come out of this without scars. From the beginning to the end, a decade of service, fighting even when he wanted to curl up in a corner and let the worms take him. And all he got was that. Then he yells that he took from him his means of surviving. The boy says he wasn't even there and made half of his skills useless since he can't use his false hand. Kara interrupts and tells Riordan that's enough that she can tell him the rest. Worried, he asks if there's even more. Determined, the elf says he wants to tell it all, every crime, every child that humans slaughtered. But the elf insists, saying that's enough, that they're done for tonight, and she believes everyone needs to rest. Finally, he says he will follow Kira's advice, because tomorrow will be a big day. Rob asks what happens tomorrow. Riordan says he will be presented to the elders for judgment, and from the story he's heard, he should know they're not kind, or he has another option. He can leave this village now and never return. He says for the human to choose his fate, that you will grant him this mercy. Our hero seems to be having some kind of nightmare, then wakes up scared saying no. He finds himself on a couch and thinks that for a moment he forgot he's trapped in a fantasy world. But it turns out elves here live in medieval mansions. He hears something and walks down the hallway. He arrives at Kira, who is crying a table in the kitchen. Worried, he asks if she's okay, and the girl says yes, she just couldn't sleep. Smiling, he says neither could he. She tells him to sit down, that she'll make more tea. Kara apologizes for the small room and says this is what her junior ranger salary can afford, but the boy says he could totally live there, and she asks if he lives like a poor person in his homeworld. Rob explains that he's a student there, so yes. The girl serves the tea to our boy. Kara apologizes for her curiosity. She says she can barely imagine how this whole ordeal must be for him. But Rob says it's okay, that he's barely processed it, so anything just simmers below the surface, gradually building up until one day it explodes into a mental breakdown. Not fully understanding, the girl says that sounds healthy. He says now he thinks he understands why she wanted to kill him when they first met. Kara says it's not like she walked out of the cleansing without scars, that she didn't fight on the front lines, but she lost her friends and family. Mina was the only one left. They wanted to be ranger partners after graduation, and she's not exactly a fan of humans. But meeting him made her realize that not all people are responsible for the sins of their kind. She adds that he's a human, but that wasn't his war. And our hero says he can feel that not everyone in her village will come to the same conclusion. Kara says she hopes they'll change their minds when they see him, but it's like they're climbing. Rob says he's already climbed at peak, so repeating that performance might not be a problem. Surprised, she asks if that's true and how high he went and how much his climbing stat increased. And our hero asks, you really like stats, don't you? She asked about his and says, it's just for survival. And she asks how he reached the peak. Rob says he fell, and she says she's starting to understand his 50 vitality at level 8. Kara says, so Rob, the guy who fell off a cliff and survived, have you made your decision? Getting more serious now. He replies that yes, he has. The next day, someone wearing a cloak walks through the streets of the city. That person walks silently along the path and on the terminal. It shows that he gained a stealth skill, which will allow him to move discreetly, but will consume 1 stamina per second of use. Then finally, he arrives at the door of a huge place. He calmly walks through the doors. From the LA's table, someone asks who this is, and another asks if he can recognize him, telling him to remove the hood. Our hero mentally compares himself to a cowboy character. He thinks they look shocked, just as he expected. The elders are mages with levels ranging from 41 to 51. Rob asks that before they identify him, they allow him to introduce himself. They start saying things like, disgusting by the gods, a human. What is this human doing here? And this is Duran's fault. Until suddenly, Raren lets out a loud whistle. One of the elders asks why he's standing there, but even with a broken leg, he can still knock him down. That Al says it's not necessary, that it seems the human made that choice, and he is here for his judgment. The elder says their judgment is to remove that human from there, preferably with his samar. My hero says Rob. He says his name is Rob, not human, and it's nice to meet all of them. Kara, standing in the corner, smiles at that. Riordan says what they need to know is that Rob is not from this world. He was teleported here a week ago. The elders seem to reflect among themselves. Then, one of them starts speaking. Rob the human. The man asks what a cataclysm is. Rob says he doesn't know, but sound bad. He asks what the currency is, and Rob answers dollar. among other test questions. Then the elders go back to debating among themselves. The one who asked the questions thanks him for his honesty and says to the other that it seems there's legitimacy in his claims, and she replies that they will assume for now that he's telling the truth, but he needs to be aware that Rob says he is that they told him what the humans of this world did. The elder woman asks why she should think twice about sparing his life. He says he could apologize on behalf of humanity if that would help, but that would be an empty apology, and he thinks everyone in that room knows it. He explains there are two reasons why. The first is because he wasn't there. He says he can't even begin to comprehend the pain it caused them, and doing so would be nothing less than an insult. And the second reason is the same. He wasn't there. He says he's a human, but not one who was part of the cleansing, and he refuses to share the guilt with those who did it. Then the elder asks if he's saying they have no business with each other. So why did he appear before them? He says that if he can't go back to his world, he has nothing better than being part of their community. And the elder says he's just seeking shelter from the wolves. Then our hero confirms that's true, but also that this is the closest thing to home he knows, that there are roads, buildings, and people here. He adds that he can tell there are good people here, and it would be nice to become friends with them. The elf girl and our hero glance at each other, smiling and speaking sincerely. He says that all he wants is a chance. The elders look at him in an overwhelming way, and the terminal shows that his diplomacy skill has increased to level 2. Rob wonders if he really just did that, as the elders now look at him less harshly, and he questions if he actually managed to convince Raritan. One of the elders claps his hands and says it was a vibrant speech, and our hero smiles in relief. When one of them says, "It's sad, but she must tell him that she will vote for his execution," our hero curses the situation in his head. She says she wants to execute him, no matter how appealing his argument is. Tense about this, he tells himself to stay cool, that they expect him to fall into one of the stereotypes humans are known for. Upset about it, he asks if he may know why. She says that seeing him makes her want to scream and pull her hair out, that his mere existence reminds her of everything she lost, and she's sure many on this panel feel the same. The elders look at each other while our hero thinks that if they all play follow the leader with this vote, he's screwed. Rob says goodbye to the world and to any chance of going home. When one of them starts to speak and finishes by saying that he supposes he should vote for him to stay, he thinks that whoever this guy is, he's now his fourth best friend. The woman gets upset and demands that he explain himself. The old man says the truth has been spoken. He'd been thinking about letting the humans stay for a while, and his words only solidify that. He says the human has a lot to teach them about his world, and he seems more agreeable with theirs. Frustrated, the woman says he always had a soft spot for humans, and that should be considered treason. The middle elder says that it's enough. She has something else important to discuss, his status effect. Then she asks him to read it out loud for them, and our hero thinks this must be a trap. He looks at his new friend, seeking support, and says that it's the same thing as yesterday. Melancholy hope. Lastly, his leveling is now high. Rob looks at them wondering what those looks mean, if he has insulted someone or something like that. That elder says that looking at his face, it seems he doesn't understand the gravity of the high leveling skill. Our hero thinks that Kira mentioned this before and wonders if that's why she wanted to check his status, because high leveling is dangerous. One of the elves asks if the old man could educate him on this subject. Then he explains that here in this world, all living things are motivated to level up. That's the nature of things, and level rests power. And who doesn't want power? He says that every intelligent being likes to level up, and rightly so, but humans they need to level up for them. Then he corrects himself. For you this is an obsession. Rob wonders if that's what he was feeling, this desire. He continues and says that for a human the desire for leveling cannot be surpassed by anything else. Not food, not love, nothing once they taste it. Rob says that what he is describing sounds like a drug. The old man corrects him, saying addiction, and the fact that it's listed in his status means the effect have already begun. Our hero is in shock because of this. In panic, he thinks that it's true, that this is natural, that leveling up makes him feel good, that leveling up makes him feel really good. Actually, he feels something good like he has never felt in his entire life. Rob asks how, since he was only level 1 a week ago, and the elder asks what level he is now. He answers 10. She says that humans level up quickly. She tells him to look at himself, says that he had to kill some things to level up fast. She knows he hesitated before, but now our hero looks at Riordan and thinks that he almost killed him, that he almost killed Riordan because of the experience. He realizes that he had never considered killing anyone on Earth, not even frogs. He would never think of it and wonders what will become of him. Suffering, he asks how he can get rid of this, but one of the elders says that he cannot, and that once it appears on his sheet, it never goes away. And the old man says that at the level he has now, it's manageable, but the higher the level, the more compulsive it becomes. Here we have a reason why humans send the afflicted at this level to the northern lands to fight until death. Rob says that he could never go that far. She continues saying that all of them think that way, and those who are lost in this addiction also lose their ability to choose peace, and their violence grows. The other elf says that she will never trust the corruption on anyone's sheet, and that she cannot accept someone in their village who could lose themselves in a bloodthirsty rage. Trembling and shaken, he says that then he gives her permission to take him down. He adds that only if she sees any sign that he is losing himself. Asks if she said that the skill will never disappear, then he will keep it there. Pointing to the elf, he says that if he fails, Riordan can kill him. The old elf asks if he would accept that, and our hero says that he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Riordan says that he witnessed the human killing the lord of the forest and gaining 4 levels in an instant, and that he is still limited to moderately high leveling. The old man says that gaining that amount of levels at once could put any human into an advanced stage. Riordan adds that somehow this guy can suppress his knee and keep his skill at a moderate level. The woman in upset asks if the elf was supporting him, but he answers that he was only stating the facts. Rob thinks that he must remember to bake a pie for the level 48 elder after this because he really secure and well. The elder says it's time to settle this with a vote. The old man says he votes for him to live. The other elder says he does too. Someone votes for his death, and another says that he agrees with Elysia that he doesn't belong in that place. Our hero gets tense thinking that only one vote remains. The last elder says that their village already has enough problems with the growth of the infection, and he is another point of agitation. Suddenly a sword strikes the ground, and Kira, irritated, says that she has been just a silent spectator to this rehearsed farce. She says that he has proven he is acting in good faith, and he will continue doing so. The other says that the girl didn't fight on the front lines, so she didn't see the brutality of humans firsthand. Kara says no, but her parents did, and they taught her better than this to judge by a person's actions and not. At this point, the elder interrupts and tells her to be careful. Annoying, she asks why if she's going to deduct it from her salary, since it's already a pittance. Our hero looks at his friend and says, "It's true." The elf asks what that was, and he answers that it bothers him that she gets paid so little. She clearly works hard and is a passionate member of society. And more important than all of that, it bothers him that it bothers her. If she didn't care, maybe he wouldn't care either, but she does care. Rob then says, "Surprise, look at that. I'm capable of basic empathy." He says that if they gave her a decent salary, she could have a house to be proud of. Even though he thinks her house is beautiful, she gets embarrassed and asks him not to talk about it. The elder says that simple compassion and empathy are all she wants to see. Then she finishes by welcoming the human Rob to the village. Sometime later in the village, a ritual is taking place. There in the middle, Riordan stands before everyone and Menta's body. Someone says that as long as there were only a few rangers in Exodin, he never felt the way he did with Mina in their ranks, and that his good nature was felt by everyone as well as his desire to protect. Rob thinks that the last funeral he attended was his grandmother's. He thinks he's surprised they let him come. Our hero feels like he should say something. Riordan says that if anyone wants to say a few parting words, now is the time. As the elf approaches, someone says that they have stood there many times. Rob realizes it's him, the elder who supported him. Then he says that this wasn't her fault. The old man says he is quick to defend a friend, but not to worry, he's not blaming her, and asks if he knows why this village has no name. Our hero says he was wondering about that, and the old man says it's a sordid story of bureaucracy. He explains that the cataclysm destroyed everything, including their way of life. Every person there, every war orphan came from one of the 5 cities or from somewhere else. Then came the collective sense that deciding what to call the new home could prove impossible. Kara refuses the handkerchief to wipe her tears. The old man continues saying that each of them wanted to name it in honor of everything that was lost. But the fact is that each one lost something different. So this village remained nameless, and they found each other, then formed new families, and now they have lost those as well. Kara says that he may not have shared the same blood, but he was her brother, and that they found their fragments in each other, and with each passing day, they became whole. Falling to her knees, she asks what she will do now that he is gone. Our hero feels that pain and almost steps forward to her, but the elder says to let her grieve. Sad, she wonders how she could ever feel whole again. Rob keeps watching her, sharing her pain. Sometime later, a few people are carrying the body of their friend to the cemetery. Rob, who is helping carry the coffin, looks at his friend, and she tells him not to ask, that she's fine. But he thinks he can imagine what she's feeling. If it were Jason, he wouldn't be in any condition to say goodbye. He wonders if he could ever understand. He wonders if Mina always had that mark on his face. But in the next moment, he's startled and thinks, oh no. Suddenly, the boy opens his eyes. He asks if anyone else saw that, or if he's in one of his weird nightmares, and Reiran says yes. Kara screams for her friend Mina, who is now on the ground. As she starts running toward him, our hero holds her back and tells her not to go. Says that's not Mina, and tells her to look. That thing starts spreading through the boy's entire body. Drawing his sword, he wonders what this parasite is. Reiran says it's a flesh eater and says they've never seen one outside the dungeon. One of them screams and says they are heading for the village. In the sky, several killer and flesh-eating crows appear, ranging from levels 4 to 28. Our hero tells Rarden to go that they need him, but the elf asks how they will manage, and Rob says they can handle it. Before leaving, he asks him to make sure to take her home. Then in the next moment, Mina arises as a flesh eater, and his friend, trembling, wonders what is happening to him. That creature roars and leaps toward Kira, suffering. She begs Rob to stop, but he apologizes, saying that isn't meant to anymore. Then he strikes the monster and tells her to be careful so those worms don't touch her. That monster, who was once Mina, screams and throws himself at Rob, grabbing him. It manages to throw our boy to the ground, slamming him against the tombstone. With a trembling voice, she tries to speak to her old friend, saying it's her, Kira. Crying, she asks if he doesn't recognize her. The monster looks at her, twisting all over. That mass of worms starts taking over the elf's body. Kira, trembling, tries to speak, begging him not to do this. But at that moment, Rob appears, grabbing the monster from behind, saying not to go so fast. But the creature has exceptional strength and throws our hero to the ground again with force. It grabs him by the collar and starts lifting him once more. Then it raises him and begins to strangle him. It tries to pull the boy closer to its mouth with a huge worm coming out. Rob struggles to push himself away when suddenly Kira pierces her old friend with her sword. Crying, she apologizes for this and with a swing of the sword nearly cuts her ex-friend in half. Rob falls to the ground with his hand on his neck and Kira kneels as well, still crying, saying goodbye to her old friend and wishing him to rest in peace. She cries, devastated, while our hero tries to comfort her. She thanks him for helping her, and he asks if that's what friends do. Then the girl answers, yes, that's what friends do. The old man says that was the target, that they flew straight for it, that they were looking for the place of power, and wonders if the infected are capable of coordinating something like that. Riordan reports that Kira and the human managed to return safely, and the elder thanks Luffern. He says the flesh eater took Minta very quickly, and that it seems the crystal is weakening. Riordan says it looks stable, but the old man asks for how long. He adds that the ranger units are depleted, and they have no choice but to gather the juniors for training. They say that Kira is a warrior, but that they've seen the damage she can cause. Then the old man asks about the human. Riordan says he's part of the village now, so they might as well train him too. He says Rob is strong, and with training, he can become even stronger. The terminal shows that Rob is level 10, as well as his attributes and bleeding status. Our hero walks happily through the town, thinking about the words of welcome to the village, that those were the most beautiful words he's ever heard. Waving, he thinks, and look at that, no one's even throwing chairs at me. Kara asks Rob to keep moving, and he asks why. She explains that it's because things are starting to get violent. Nearby, the elder shouts for Kira and asks her to hurry. They approach the house, and the girl pushes him inside. Then the old man slams the door shut behind them. Looking out the window, she says the crowd is leaving, at least for now. Riordan says the news has spread, and the villagers already know there's a human in town. Kara crouches on the ground, and our hero worried asks what's wrong, but she says she's fine. Frustrated, he says sure, obviously that she looks great, and she replies that there's a hungry mob coming for him, and he's lucky the funeral ended with this distraction. Rob says he can handle shouting and swinging fists, then asks if she wants to talk about what happened with Mina, but she answers no. Riordan says he's right to be concerned, that no one should have to say goodbye to a friend like that, and apologizes for not being more helpful. With a sad expression, she says it's okay. Then she says she'll go outside to make the crowd disperse, and the elf will go with her, and that if she wants to talk while they do it, they can. The elf thanks him. The old man becomes a bit tense, and our hero grows worried. Rob wonders why he's staring at him like that, and feels like an insect on a petri dish. Finally, he asks what the name of the world he came from is. A little awkward, he answers that it's Earth. Surprised, the old man says Earth, and that it seems this makes him an Earthling. Embarrassed, he says yes, it seems so. Then the elder continues and says he has many questions for him. But our hero says that actually he has a few questions for him too, if he doesn't mind. The elder says of course, and that his name is Duran, and that they have a long night ahead, asking what he thinks about visiting the library. Upon arriving, he thanks him for defending the village, and our hero says he was happy to help, but mentions that Carrie did all the work, that he himself was being rescued. The old man says he knows that his world is as curious to Rob as his own as to the elder, and that you should consider him a resource. He says that as beautiful as this place is a part of him. Then he approaches and points to a spot on the globe, finishing by saying that there's a part of him that still wants to find his way home. Duran says he fears that's the one topic he has no knowledge of, that his arrival in this world is unprecedented. Rob asks about his friend that he was almost dragged in as well, and asks if he thinks his friend might be okay. Duran says he's sure his friend is fine, and it's likely the portal closed right after he was caught. Rob thinks he's just saying that to make him feel better. Smiling, he tells the elder that he hopes he's right, and he adds that he can look through the old scrolls. Maybe there's something he has forgotten gratefully. Rob thanks Duran for that, but he says that he has 10 attribute points and doesn't know what to do with them, since in his world there are no levels and they can't see their stats. Duran says, of course, the noble art of min-maxing, and that he can understand his concern. Our hero thinks that's an RP term. How does he even know that here? He says it's a bit intrusive, but asks if he can show his character sheet. Rob asks if that's considered something personal in Alara, and that Kier asks for it 5 minutes after meeting him. Suddenly other people arrive, and he says of course she asked. The two have returned from their mission, and the girl looks a little shy. Duran asks about the crowd in rear, and says they're gone. The girl says the elf looked at them, and they left. Kara says she doesn't understand this hesitation with the sheets, that they can always see levels with identification anyway, and the old man asks her why strength 55 if she was at 50. Yo says that she put points in his strength again, and the girl says her build works well, but he tells her she relies too much on her danger sense that they need vitality. Duran says it's nice that he mentioned it, because he's seeing a similar problem. He apologizes if it sounds like an insult, but asks if Rob knows he can put points into other attributes. He explains that things happen, many things, that he was full of panic and would do anything to survive. The elder says he understands, and that he doesn't recommend putting points into magic, because to become a mage, you need to invest heavily in magic and mind right from the start. Rob comments that so no fireballs for him. Duran says he seems disappointed and asks if magic is coveted in his world. And the boy says many would give anything for it since there's no magic on Earth. He's shocked that people would mutilate themselves, and Rob explains that their only magic is pulling coins out of ears. And the old man says that's incredible, that he must be rich. Finally, he says that if he were Rob, he would put that point into perception, that this will heighten his senses and make him notice details. It will help with training alongside the juniors under Riordan's command. They ask if he's serious, and the elf replies that he starts tomorrow. Rob asks if that means he automatically becomes a ranger. Karis says no, thanks to Lothin, and apologizes to Riordan. The elf says he is satisfied with the choices he has made in his life. Duran explains that he will be able to change his class to ranger before the crystal. Doing this will grant him a new power and change the course of his life, and that he shouldn't decide quickly. Rob says that right now he just wants to decide what he's going to have for dinner. And asked about dexterity, the old man says it influences speed and reflexes. He asks if strength doesn't also make him faster by making his legs stronger. Both elves answer together that no, it does not. Duran says that for a build with so much vitality, his mind is actually quite high. He explains that it was 19 when he arrived there, and Riordan says that only a human would have such an advantage. Duran says it means he was a cultured man in his world. Happy with that, he thinks that the old man probably meant he's intelligent, and that he's never heard that before. Then he says that he's not a genius. He just had a normal education like history and math. And the elder is surprised, and then questions math. All excited, he thinks the guy actually believes he's a genius. Duran gets excited and says it would be great to have someone who could check his accounting books. Then he shows the boy the book. Rob points out that the correct number on that line should be 60,000. On the terminal, it shows that he gained his skill in mathematics, and that his speed for solving problems increased slightly. As he keeps going through the book, his mathematics rises to level 4. But suddenly, he puts his hand on his head and thinks, oh no. He looks at his terminal, and the leveling skill is still at medium. He thinks to himself, telling that thing to stay at medium forever, calling a cursed thing. Kara asks if he's okay. He says he's just worrying about the promise of becoming a bloodthirsty monster, nothing major. Our hero asks if he can look at the library to research on his own. Duran says yes, but that everything is in Elvish, and Rob says he's not a Tolkien fan, apologizing. The elder explains that translation is a skill that can be unlocked by having a solid mind attribute and reading a lot. And the boy says he considers himself a bookworm. Sometime later, he is at the table reading something. The elder helps him with that reading. Rob puts a lot of effort into it and thinks it seems to be working. Suddenly, those letters that were previously incomprehensible in the book start becoming a bit clearer. Half desperate, he wonders why it feels like his brain is bleeding. Suddenly, his friend stands up saying there's something wrong with his nose. His nose is bleeding. And on the terminal, it shows that he took 9 localized damage to the brain. She gets scared and reared and quickly asks the Elder Duran to use a healing spell, while the terminal shows that he took another 15 damage to the brain. Rob wonders if he's receiving the automatic translation skill or having an aneurysm, and then he takes another 23 damage to the brain. The two elves look at him shocked, and he thinks it's definitely an aneurysm and takes another 35 damage to the brain. He starts to lose consciousness, and then it shows that he took another 51 damage to the brain. There it shows some confusing error messages, but right after that he gained the automatic translation skill. The next terminal shows a sheet, but with the stats undefined, saying they're being reconfigured. A coin flies through the air, and someone says that this will determine the fate of humans, so they should place their bets. 3 people appear. One asks if this is serious, and another says they can't believe it. The coin falls to the ground, showing its face, and another asks if this is serious, and that luck seems to be on his side. Later in a house, our hero sleeps, and on the terminal, it shows that there was no permanent brain damage and an apology for his system error granting him +1 to mind. He wakes up when he levels up to 11, gaining 5 more attribute points. Lying on the couch, he thinks that he just wanted to read, but the terminal shows that he has received the Eldish language translation skill. He thinks that looked like code and wonders if he might be trapped in some kind of virtual world. The next moment, the terminal shows that he is not in a virtual world. Surprised by this, he gets up looking around, asking what that was when a voice thanks the gods. Kara comes over worried and asks if he remembers her name. Smiling, he says it's Kira and that it's good to see a friendly face. She explains that he had brain damage and that her face is never friendly, but he can ask anyone in the village. Rob says he doesn't exactly know what happened, but he apologizes if he scared them. She asks if he doesn't remember anything. Then he replies that he only remembers a whole lot of brain damage. Exasperated, she says he almost died and that he shouldn't joke about it. Trembling, she says that she means she doesn't want to bury 2 friends today. He apologizes and says that joking is just his way of coping, but it seems the system gave him the all clear. And unless the system is wrong or lying, he has no permanent brain damage. Kara says that's reassuring that the system is never wrong or lying. And Rob says it seems to have a dark sense of humor. She gets alarmed and asks what he means if he spoke to it. Our boy says he wouldn't say it spoke, but that the notifications have a decent amount of sarcasm. Kara says he should keep that to himself, that saying the system is talking to him is a clear sign of mental illness. He says duly noted and asks if she can now explain to him exactly what happened. She explains that everything happened at once. The elder used his medical analysis magic, and she believes the phrase he used was that his mind was unraveling at a fundamental level, and he thinks that doesn't sound good. But he thinks at least he got auto-translation in the end, like a consolation prize. She says he was lucky Rarin found a healer quickly, and that he should have seen how fast he was even well injured. But now there's something more serious. Looking out the window, there's a crowd outside. Outside, we can see a mob of angry elves. Kara says they've been out there for hours, and Rob says, at least they haven't burned the house down. She says they did try. So our hero asks if they really tried, and the girl confirms yes. She tells him to sit down, that she'll go fetch Riordan, and he'll make them all scatter. Then he says to take all the time she needs, that he'll just read, and she asks if he's really going to do that.